This is bullcrap! We got those magic items fair and square!
That's right, our rogue snatched them from the dragon turtle while we were all creating a distraction. Are you sure that the 5-finger discount counts as fair? Or square for that matter?
Hey, idiot! Shut up, will you? Are you on the Dungeon Master's side or something?
Yeah, that's right. Our dungeon master is just looking for an excuse to take these magic items away, so shut your mouth already.
Indeed. How many mercenaries will we have to deal with before our dungeon master just lets us keep them?
Yeah, but guys, what if the dungeon master is just role-playing what the enemy would do? There doesn't have to be anything malicious about it.
Wow, that's a big word. Do you even know what it means?
Haha, yeah, it rhymes with delicious.
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a Dungeon Master since 1973. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your game table. There are lots of things players love about Dungeons & Dragons, and I think near the top of that list is the feeling that they've just pulled a fast one on a bad guy. And though there are lots of things that I, as a Dungeon Master, love about the game, definitely near the top of the list is planning and executing said bad guy's revenge. This is the story of such a time. So, my Sword Coast Guard players are all level 8 and investigating this underground compound, trying to put an end to this cult of Drazovine, an elder power that was banished from the known planes. Now, this cult was, of course, trying to release their master from his banishment, and to do this, they needed to collect remnants of his power that were scattered across the prematerial plane eons ago when he was banished. To this end, the cult made an arrangement with a dragon turtle, Gimis the Hungry, to mine for these remnants in an underground lake near her lair. And to do the actual mining, the cultists are also employing a group of Sahuagin. Okay, so right off the bat, I imagine many of you are wondering what in the world I was doing placing a high-level creature like a dragon turtle in an adventure designed for a level 8 party. Well, it's clearly because I'm a horrible dungeon master who takes great pleasure in slaughtering my players' characters. Or maybe, just maybe, it's because I understand the value of occasionally making the players feel like it's a big world out there where not every encounter is specifically designed for them. That is, sometimes they might just run into something that is way out of their league. You see, there were 3 parts to this dungeon: the cultist compound, the Sahuagin area, and the dragon turtle's lair. 2 were required areas, the cultists and the Sahuagin, to complete the adventure, but the dragon turtle was completely optional. I like to do this from time to time in my adventures, and often the optional part contains a crazy challenging creature that the party may or may not stand a chance of defeating. In fact, they usually don't. However, with great risk comes great reward, and I usually put in lots of loot, including magic items, into these optional areas. But here's the important part. I make sure that my players understand that it's optional. I don't outright tell them, but I heavily imply it through storytelling, description, and stuff like that. Although, with things like this, I don't necessarily feel it's wrong to go a little meta and outright tell your players, especially if they aren't used to this sort of thing. My players, though, know how evil I am and expect the occasional creature far above their pay grade. However, they also know there's usually a crap ton of loot in store for them if they overcome the challenge. Okay, anyway, my players decide to poke at this dragon turtle and go after its loot. They know, however, that they stand 0 chance against it in actual combat, so they use guerrilla warfare tactics to distract Gimis while one of the characters sneaks into her lair and manages to steal several magic items and 3 dragon turtle eggs. The character is nearly caught on the way out, but slips past the now enraged dragon turtle. Wizard throws up a wall of force to cover their escape, and the party beats a hasty retreat from the area, magical loot and dragon turtle eggs in hand. So right here is the point in the game where my players feel like royal geniuses. They just pulled a fast one on a creature that they didn't stand a chance in combat against, stealing its most valuable treasure and its 3 eggs. And this is also the point where the dungeon master, me, got to start plotting the dragon turtle's next steps. You see, these creatures aren't stupid, and they have connections with other humanoids such as pirates and other sea-growing races. It's not like the dragon turtle is just going to slink back to her lair and lick her wounds and pout. No, she wants her stuffs back. And of course, a bit of sweet, sweet revenge. challenge. By the way, I've now begun streaming over on Twitch at least every other week, sometimes more frequently. We either create D&D things together, NPCs, villains, traps, encounters, or even entire adventures, or I answer your dungeon mastering questions, and sometimes we just hang out and paint miniatures together. And if you miss a stream, I'll be uploading many of the live streams to my second YouTube channel, the DM Lair Streams. Now, the thieving heroes go on about their lives, adventuring, defeating further enemies, raiding further loot, you know, the standard thing that characters do in Dungeons & Dragons. However, Gimmis the Hungry is reaching out to her humanoid contacts, reviewing her options, and making plans. It turns out that one of the magic items the players looted from the dragon turtle really isn't something they'd use, so they put out the word across Waterdeep that they are looking for a buyer. This is, of course, naturally Gimmis's first opportunity to strike. The players find a buyer, and due to the amount of gold he'll be paying, request a meeting a day or so north of Waterdeep. Now, my players are no fools, and they know that something is up, but being the good sports that they are, or just spoiling for some action, they agree to the meeting. And of course, it's an ambush. The group of mercenaries was hired by Gimmis to get the magic items and eggs back, and they give the players the opportunity to hand them over without a fight. My players naturally refuse, and a fight breaks out. Now, the mercenaries just so happen to deploy many of the same tactics my players' characters use, polymorphing into a T-Rex, banishment, and other fun stuff. The mercenaries, in fact, are nearly a mirror image of the players' PCs. It's a fun little battle, and the heroes defeat the mercenaries. However, there are always more mercenaries, and Gimmis is just getting started. Now, I would love to say that deploying a mirror image of my players' characters was by design, but it was actually just a coincidence. I didn't plan for it that way, though in retrospect, it is a pretty cool idea that players in general would probably get a kick out of. Now, deploying the same tactics my players routinely use was by design. In fact, I would say that most of the cool and nasty battle tactics I use, I learned from my players. They start using extremely effective spells or combat tactics, and then a few sessions later, or in the very next session, the bad guys magically start doing the exact same thing. Here's the thing. It's a hard job being the Dungeon Master because it's just one brain working to challenge 4 or more brains. The Dungeon Master is always outnumbered and usually outbrained. So, though I do my best to come up with creative ways to challenge my players and make the game fun and interesting for them, I also pay attention to what they do and learn from them. The Dungeon Master is not above their players and can always learn from them. My suggestion, though, is to do this within reason. If you start mirroring everything they do, then I imagine that would start to feel a little too contrived and lame. More mercenaries follow the first, of course. Next, the heroes are ambushed by a gnome illusionist and a group of fighters on their way back from Waterdeep from an adventure. Then, quite some time after that, they are attacked by Drow during their downtime when they are split up. You see, the Drow aren't fools and have noted the lack of success of previous mercenaries. 3 of the players defeat their Drow ambushers, but 2 of them are taken captive. So, the 3 heroes go on a rescue mission and confront the Drow. Pragmatic to the extreme, the Drow desire no battle if it can be avoided and cut a deal with the heroes. They'll free their 2 companions if the heroes bring the magic items and eggs to them. So, the players agree and get their companions released, and then proceed to break their agreement with the Drow, refusing to deliver the magic items and eggs. I mean, who saw that coming? This, of course, leads to a Drow attack, and a pretty beefy one at that. The players are really taxed to their limits in this battle, though they do win. At this point, they feel that enough is enough, and it's time to track Gimmis the Dragon Turtle down and put an end to this bullcrap once and for all. Okay, I have a couple points to make here. The first one is that I was spreading these mercenary attacks out over the course of several months, perhaps half a year in actual time. They were taking place while the players were going on other adventures and pursuing other activities. They were part of a separate story arc that was taking place. This did a couple things for the game. First, it gave the players something else to deal with besides just the main campaign arc. I found that having 2 or 3 different story arcs at play during a campaign is extremely beneficial. Not only does it allow the Dungeon Master to pursue a few different things that he may find interesting, but it also gives the players some variety. You see, it can become boring or turn into a slog if the players are always following just one story arc. Mixing things up with a side quest or something based on a character's backstory keeps things interesting and dynamic for your players. I created a couple videos a while back about how I create campaigns and story arcs arcs that walks through how I do this. I will put links down in the description to them if you're interested in checking them out. Next, what I was having happen with Gimmis the Dragon Turtle is an example of how I have my game world react to my players' actions in the world. As much as possible, I try to have my world behave like a living, breathing world where my players' actions or inactions matter and affect the world around them. I feel this immensely improves the game experience for my players. It makes them feel more like they are on center stage when their actions matter. It also makes them feel like the stakes are higher and their decisions are more important. It also makes my job as a dungeon master easier. Instead of dreaming up adventures in a box, I can just think through and envision how the world or the villain would react to my players' actions. And then that serves as seeds for further adventures. And a final note about the Drow that captured two of the characters. You were probably thinking that the Drow would never have released the two characters without first getting the magic items and eggs. And of course, you're probably right. However, I felt that it would have been immensely unsatisfying to have two players basically sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing while the other three players played the game. So I made a decision not based on what the Drow would actually do, but based on what would be best for the gameplay. Maybe it was the wrong call, but when I'm a player, I hate sitting there bored, doing nothing while everyone else plays the game. So I didn't want to subject my players to such a thing. Okay, back to Gimmis. My players are thoroughly tired of the bullcrap attacks by mercenary group after mercenary group and decide to track her down and end her. First, they return to her lair only to find her gone and several Hydroloths, fiendish mercenaries hired by Gimmis, waiting for them. And now my players have really had it. Using their magical abilities and calling in a few favors with local Waterdeep factions, they track Gimmis down to where she was last spotted attacking ships off the Sword Coast. My players commandeer a pirate ship and force them to sail to the location of the attacks, posing as a merchant ship. Predictably, Gimmis attacks the ship and it's on. As the heavily damaged ship takes on water and begins to sink, with pirates jumping overboard and swimming away from the horrific dragon turtle, my players lay into Gimmis with everything they have. It's a no-holds-bars confrontation, and only one side is going to walk away. It's a close battle that borders on the brink of disaster for my players, but they don't care. They've had enough of Gimmis's crap, and one way or another, it'll end now. It's the druid that decides it. Shape changed into a polar bear, the druid tears through Gimmis's weakened shell and begins to swim through her innards, tearing her apart from the inside, and finally bursts out from the side of her head. Gimmis has been defeated, and my players demand a level up for the accomplishment. I mean, that's like 6 months of frustration and annoyance finally at an end. Anyway, let me know about a time in your games where a villain hounded the characters until they finally had enough. Also, click right here to hear the story of Gary the Intern and how he sold his soul for a corporate benefits package. And until next time, let's play D&D.